What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the vlog. For those that are new here, my name is Eric and this is my 2022 M340i xDrive. In today's video, we're going to be installing an M Performance steering wheel, and then we're going to be taking this thing out and doing some canyon driving in today's video. So let's go ahead and jump into the install. Alright guys, so this is everything we're going to need to remove the steering wheel and install the new M Performance style one. We have a set of Torx bits. We have an impact with a 16mm socket. If you don't have an impact, you can use a normal ratchet, but you are going to need somebody else to hold the steering wheel for you. Having an impact makes it really easy to get the steering wheel bolt out. You're also going to need something to clear the codes from the car, or you can go ahead and disconnect the battery so you don't have any codes. But it is always good to have one of these on hand when you're removing your airbag. Even if you do disconnect the battery, sometimes you can get codes if everything's not plugged in right. So having something to clear codes is helpful on this as well. Let's go ahead and unbox the new steering wheel. So this is it. This is the M Performance style with Alcantara and leather. It also has the BMW colored stitch with the blue, purple, and red, as well as a red 12 o'clock ring. This wheel is also set up for heating and has this plug right here because my car does have a heated steering wheel from factory. As you can see, this comes as a bare steering wheel, so there's none of the trim on here, so we're going to be taking all of that from the stock steering wheel and installing it on this one. Let's go ahead and jump in the car and remove the stock steering wheel. Alright guys, so in a previous video I've shown you this, but to remove this steering wheel, just like every other BMW steering wheel, you start with the airbag, and that's going to allow you to get access to everything behind. You actually have to come underneath the steering wheel and use something to push up through the leather. Inside there's a secret hole, and it's going to release the airbag from one side. You do it to the other side and pull it out. So I'm going to use one of those Torx bits I showed you earlier. We're going to shove it in here, remove the airbag, and then we'll take the steering wheel off. I ended up switching over to a small Allen, and that actually worked a little bit easier. We were able to release both sides. So we're just going to pull this out and disconnect this plug right here. The only other thing we're going to need to do to get this out of the car is disconnect this plug right here and this plug right here. Now we can remove the 16mm and take the steering wheel over to the bench. Alright, now let's take this over to the bench and we can go ahead and disassemble all of the internals and swap it over to the new wheel. So with these both out of the car, you can kind of see the differences between both of these wheels. They're the same shape, just this one being a little bit thicker because of the Alcantara and the upgraded leather. And then this wheel actually has already been upgraded to carbon fiber trim and the M-style carbon fiber paddle shifters. If you wanted to do that, it would be a great time to, since you're going to be swapping all of this stuff out anyway. But we are going to be taking all of this stuff off of this wheel, installing it over here. We're going to be using a T20. We're going to start by removing the paddle shifters. So what you got to do is you pull the paddle shifter plug, which is this blue plug right here, out of the way, and that will give you access to the T20 to get both of the paddle shifters out. And then we're just going to disconnect this blue plug right here. Once you get those plugs removed, you can just go ahead and pull the paddle shifters out of the front, just feeding that little plug through with the paddle shifter. Okay, so we have both paddle shifters removed. We can set these to the side. Make sure you don't lose the two bolts for these, and then we'll be swapping these over to the new steering wheel. Now that we have the paddle shifters out, we can flip the wheel over, and you're going to go ahead and remove these two T20s that hold on the steering wheel trim from the back side. So we can flip the wheel back over. We should be able to remove the trim. Once we unplug this heated button, if you have it, it'll be right here. So now that that's off, we're going to be able to disconnect the wiring harness on this side, and that just plugs into the trim itself. Okay, so now we have this trim removed, we can set it off to the side. Next thing we can take off is this upper trim piece right here, and that's just these two bolts, two T20 bolts. Now this whole trim piece just slides up, and then that reveals the rest of this wiring harness. So the next thing we're going to do is actually remove this center plate right here with these T20s. Now that that's removed, we can go ahead and disconnect this one connection right here on the side. Alright guys, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to pull this back, and behind it, it will reveal two T20s. We're going to remove those. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to lift this section up right here and release this. Now the rest of this actually can stay as pretty much one unit. We're going to be releasing a couple clips and pulling this whole wiring harness off, and we'll move it over to the new wheel. So you just want to work your way around the edges and start kind of pulling this whole unit up together, and the whole thing should come out as one unit. We just want to make sure we get something to release this right here. I'm going to use a small screwdriver and just try and evenly pry this up around all of the sides off of this post. Alright, so we just worked our way around that and released this. So now we can go ahead and pull the rest of this plastic wiring harness grid out of the steering wheel together. So now that we have this whole assembly out, we're going to go ahead and pull this down and release this connector right there. We're going to take this whole wiring harness, we're going to transfer it to the new wheel. Alright guys, this is everything we've taken out so far. The wiring harness, the horn contact, the trim piece, the paddle shifters, and the front trim. So we're going to go ahead and take all of this in reverse order, starting with the wiring harness, and start putting it into the new wheel. Alright, so now we're just going to be installing everything in the reverse order, taking these two T20s and installing them into this little motor right here. Alright, so now that those are in, we can move on to the next thing, which was this right here. We're going to make sure that none of the wiring is underneath this, and then we're going to be putting the 3 bolts back in. Alright guys, now that we have this whole wiring harness in and this center section for the horn in, we can go ahead and reinstall this upper section of the trim, and that just slides down into place. So we're going to go ahead and reinstall these 4 T20s that hold in this upper trim piece. All right guys, we got the steering wheel pretty much reassembled. We took out this module right here and we're just gonna leave that plug right in there unplugged. We have the new adapter for hands-free that's plugged into the stock wiring harness. And then we're actually just gonna be setting this down in here where that module was, and we can tuck away all the wiring. And then this will plug in to the plug behind the trim. All right, now that we have that trim piece pushed into place, we can go ahead and flip the wheel over, and we're gonna go ahead and put these two bolts back in to hold the trim in place permanently. All right, now that those are in, we can go ahead and take the paddle shifters and we're gonna fish these through from behind, and then we're gonna flip it over and secure those. All right, so you're just gonna take your one screw and you're gonna hold the paddle shifter up from behind, feed this down in here, and try and get it tightened up. Double check that they work. Okay, so now we're going to reconnect the paddle shifter plug right here. Plug that in. We're gonna tuck this in down here, back into its holder. We're gonna go ahead and reconnect this side paddle shifter. Put it back in its holder. And then the last but not least is just this heating button down here. We're gonna make sure that's plugged in and put into its holder as well. Perfect. So now this steering wheel is fully put together. It is ready to go into the car. So let's go ahead and step back over there and we'll get this thing put in. All right guys, we got the wheel back in the car. You're gonna go ahead and just slot it back onto the hub. There's only one way it goes, so you can't mess it up. And then we're gonna go ahead and put this bolt back in, start it by hand, and then we're gonna hit it with the impact. So now we're gonna go ahead and reconnect this plug right here and this one up here. Now we can take our airbag, we're gonna reconnect the plug up here, and then we're gonna slot this into place, push it right in. All right, that's it. The steering wheel is installed. I think this thing looks amazing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let's go ahead and clean up and we're gonna head out, go get some shots of this thing outside. All right guys, as always, if you guys are interested in any of the parts on this car, they're all down in the links in the description. Thank you guys so much for checking out today's video. If you liked it, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to check out some more content, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.